Okay, great. And that should be working. Okay, just give me a second. I believe we're live streaming on YouTube, but I could be wrong. It's funny, there's so few people in the webinar tonight. I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, it looks like we're live streaming on YouTube. That's cool. All right, I'll just mute that. Just give me a second to see if anyone's watching. Looks like they are. Okay, cool. Sounds good. Good. All right, people are on YouTube watching this. That's good. It's a little bit of a delay here. That should be fine. Okay, I think I'll get started. I'm not sure what's going on, why there are so few people here. Maybe you saw the class today earlier with Craig. Okay, cool. Let me bring up those slides. Good. I think we can get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Jay. I'm one of the expert OET teachers here at E2 Language. In this live class, we're going to look at OET writing. This is for doctors, but I still think it will be applicable to all professions because the methodology that we teach applies to all professions. Some of the case notes may be a little bit sort of complicated, but we'll see what happens there. I think it'll still be very much worth your while watching this one. Okay, if you have any questions, I'm just going to hold on to them. I'll do a Q&A at the end. I realize that some of you have a test tomorrow, so I'm aware that you want your questions answered, so I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, just hold on one second. Okay, let's get started. Sorry about that. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube and you don't know what E2 Language is, E2 Language is an online preparation platform for high-stakes English tests, just like the OET and the IELTS. So what we do, one of the things that we do very, very well is offer one-on-one tutorials. So I think the fastest way to improve your writing and your speaking is to meet with an expert online and get feedback, okay? Okay. Just give me 1 second, sorry. Sorry, I had to tell my colleagues to be quiet. Okay, let's get started with the method for writing. So the basic method for writing is this. You have 45 minutes, right? You'll have 5 minutes of reading time and you'll have 40 minutes of writing time. In the reading time, the first thing you should do is read the task, okay? The task is absolutely critical. You go straight to the task, skip the case notes. You want to find out who you're writing to and why, okay? Because who you're writing to and why you're writing to them will determine the case notes that you select. So after you've fully understood and read the task, and the task has a lot of information, you then start to read the case notes, and that will require some interpretation because the case notes are complicated. They're usually abbreviations. They're certainly not full-length sentences. They include symbols and ungrammatical statements, etc. Then after that, in your mind, because you cannot use a pen while you're reading in the 5 minutes, you'll be thinking about which case notes you're going to select. And there are really two questions you want to ask yourself while you're looking at the case notes. Question one you want to think about is it relevant? Okay, that's your first question. Is this case note relevant? And the second question is it important? And if it's relevant, how important is it? Is it highly important, like highly necessary, or should it be prioritized, or is it less important? Okay, so this first question is a yes/no question. Is it relevant or not? And this question is a how high or how low. Okay, that's what you're doing in the reading time. Then when the writing starts, you have 40 minutes. The first thing you should do is quickly plan your letter. You have enough time. 40 minutes is enough time because the length of the letter should be between 180 and 200 words. So you have enough time to spend about 3 minutes at the beginning with your pen and on the test booklet, obviously not where you're writing, but somewhere else, thinking about, okay, what am I going to put in my introductory paragraph? What paragraph goes next and what will be in that? what will be the following paragraph and what goes in that. So you just want to sketch out a little plan, and we'll do that today. That leaves you with 37 minutes to start writing, and that is plenty of time to write a nice letter between 180 and 200 words, okay? Obviously, you have to transform the case notes into phrases, and the phrases into sentences, and the sentences into paragraphs, and the paragraphs into a letter, okay? That's the name of the game here. So that's the basic method. If we just look at it again, read the task first. In the reading time, you want to interpret and select case notes. In the writing time, you quickly make a plan, and then you start to write your letter. Okay, let's do this. What we're going to do today is kind of like a mock writing test, okay? I'm actually going to give you 40 minutes to write your letter. So let's just do it. Let's pretend it's test day, okay? Okay, so you can begin reading. First thing you want to do is read the task. I'm going to give you 45 seconds to read this and then answer these questions into the chat. Okay, let's think about this. So, first question, critical question is, who is the intended reader? Who's going to be reading this letter? We're not thinking that this letter is going to be read by OET examiners, okay? Put that aside. Think about this as a professional situation, okay? So you're going to write to a physio, or you're going to write to an occupational therapist, or you're going to write to a cardiologist, okay? That's the critical question. So in this instance, we're writing to, well, I think I have the answers here. No, I don't. Let's go back. Okay, let me look at the chat. Who have you got there? Hopefully you've got a pulmonologist. Good, nice. It's also important to think what type of letter you're going to write. In this instance, it actually explicitly says we're going to write a referral letter, for example. So we're writing a referral letter to a pulmonologist. So that's who the intended reader is. What are the main things you want the reader to do? Well, it doesn't actually say. It doesn't say here. So we're going to be relying on the management plan or discharge plan for the request, because what we want to get out of this one is we always want somebody to do something for us. This is called the request, okay? What does the reader need to know? And what does the reader already know? I'm going to leave that information because I'm going to put you under a bit of pressure. Okay, we've read the task. Now we move on to reading and interpreting case notes. So I'm going to give you actually, I believe, 5 minutes. This is your reading time. Do you remember what the two questions are that we have to ask ourselves? What's the first question you need to ask yourself? Pop it into the chat for me. What's the first question you need to ask yourself when you're reading the case notes? Do you remember? Come on, somebody pop it in. Yes, thank you, Vangelita. A, is it relevant? Okay. And what's the second question you ask yourself while you're reading the case notes? Importance or prioritization. How important is it? So A, yes, it's relevant. Okay, it's relevant. That's good. Now, where would it sit in order of priority? Would it go at the top? Is it really important? Or is it something that can be put down in the letter? Because what we'll find out at the end of this lesson, we'll look at how the OET examiners grade your writing. There's one thing they look at, which is, did you prioritize important information? So that's critical. Cool. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do the reading time now. Okay, so time is up. That's all the time you have to read the case notes. So you get a good feeling for how long that takes when you are actually taking this test. Hopefully, while you're reading through those case notes, again, you're thinking, A, is it relevant? B, how important is it? A, is it relevant? B, how important is it? In amongst that, you're still interpreting the case notes, trying to understand what's going on. There's a bit of a story happening here, and we're going to tell this story to the pulmonologist, okay? All right, so the writing time begins. First thing you're going to do is write a quick plan. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to think about how you're going to structure your letter overall in terms of the introduction, paragraph 1, P2, P3, etc. Also think about the structure within each paragraph. Okay, even when you're thinking about prioritizing important information, you've got the prioritized paragraphs, then within the paragraph, what gets prioritized. So you're sort of thinking about two structures: overall structure, paragraph structure. What else was I going to say about the plan? Okay, yes. What I was also going to say was there is no set overall structure for an OET letter. Okay, a lot of people write in and they say, Jay, does the medical history always come after the introduction? It depends. Jay, do I include the social history? It depends. It depends on what? Does anyone want to answer what it depends on? What does it depend on, whether you include something or where you place something? What does that depend on? Yes, it depends on who you're writing to. It depends on whether the person you're writing to knows the patient or not. It depends on relevance, of course. So you have to remain flexible on test day. The OET examiners don't want to see memorized structures. The OET examiners want to see structures that fulfill the task. Okay, that's what they want to see. If you do that, they'll be happy. If you come in with some memorized thing, say, oh, it's always medical history, then social history, then current condition, that's not going to get you a good score. What will get you a good score is somebody who reads the task and goes, aha, I'm writing to a pulmonologist. I need to include this, this, and this. This is the most relevant thing. Medical history might go here, might go here. It totally depends. All right, so let's write a plan. You have 3 minutes on a piece of paper. Please don't start writing your letter. I don't want you to start writing a paragraph. I want you to sketch up a plan. What will your paragraphs be, in what order? You have 3 minutes. Okay, so that's the planning time. 3 minutes is probably excessive. I'm thinking between 2 and 3 minutes to sketch up a little plan. This is absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, this is absolutely critical. It's like if you've taken the IELTS test, for example, and you have to write the essay, the worst thing you can do is just start writing the essay without thinking, okay, what will my first paragraph be? What will my second paragraph be? Okay, it's always a good idea just to go, okay, let's just critically think about this for a few minutes. Let's get this right. What will this paragraph be? What will this paragraph be? What will this paragraph be? How many paragraphs will I need? What will go into each paragraph? You just sketch it out. You've got a nice little skeleton there. Then you can begin actually writing your letter properly, and it's going to follow a nice structure. Somebody asked me in the chat, Jay, is structure all the OET examiners look for in your writing? The answer is no, of course not. There are many, many, many things, and I'll show you at the end of this what the OET examiners are looking for precisely in your letter. But one of the things I can tell you is if you get the structure right, if you get a good structure, it helps everything else. Okay, it helps with the selection of the case notes. It helps with whether you've prioritized the case notes correctly. It will also help you with your sentence structure and your grammar as well, because you've got something there that's the overall framework and you're filling it in. Okay, so it's definitely a good thing to do. Okay, so we've just planned. Just before we begin writing our letter, if you haven't taken the OET before, this is what the writing booklet looks like on test day. Okay, so you've got this, you'll have a candidate number that you'll have to fill in, family name, you fill in your first and perhaps middle name, your profession, doctor, nurse, physio, etc. Put in your test venue name, the city, the country, the date of the test, and then you sign here. And then where you write your letter will look like this. Okay, so you have 2 pages, which is plenty of room to write 180 to 220 words. Remember, you want to leave a line between things. For example, the address goes here, you leave a line, you write the date here, for example, you leave a line blank, then you move into this. So do leave a line because you are scored on formatting as well. Okay, here we go. We're going to write our letter. I'm going to give you not quite 40 minutes here. I'll let this one go through. This one I'll stop a few minutes before because we did spend 3 minutes planning. But now I want you to begin writing your letter. What I don't want you to do is type it, because there's no computer-based OET test. What I want you to do is write it on a piece of paper. The reason is, if you haven't written something on a piece of paper for a long time, it's going to be a very different experience. All of a sudden, there's a physical experience of like, oh, whoa, my hand hurts and it feels different writing a letter, especially if you're writing with a pencil, which I believe you have to do in the test. The other thing is with handwriting is all of a sudden you realize that you can't use the keys and backspace, and you can't go, oh, I want to move this here or copy and paste. None of that. So what you have to do when you're handwriting is think ahead about what your sentence will be like. What is your sentence going to say? So you sort of need to, it's different than typing. So please handwrite it. What we'll do after this, I'm going to show you 2 model letters, okay? And you can see if how yours compares with the model letters. I'm going to show you a bad one and I'm going to show you a good one. So you now have 37 minutes to write your letters or letter. Right? Okay, so you're more than halfway through the writing time now. Remember, we took 3 minutes to write a plan. So now we have 17 minutes left, okay? Hopefully you should be into your sort of, I don't know. I'll be interested to know where you're up to, but just keep in mind, at the end of 17 minutes here, I'm going to show you a bad model letter and a good model letter, and that should answer a lot of your questions about, as well as I'm going to go through and look at case note selection as well. So just keep going. I think this is good practice. In fact, I think this is the kind of best practice you can do is guided practice where you're actually writing the letters. Of course, feedback is excellent as well, and that's what we do at e2language.com. If you're not an E2 Language member, I highly recommend signing up to the website, even for free, just to check it out. And just bear in mind, we also run these live classes twice a day, Monday to Friday, on all the different subtests as well. I'm one of the teachers as well as a couple others. So cool, let's keep pressing on, okay? Cool. So keep sticking with it. We've got another sort of 5 minutes, I think. Just make sure that everything in your letter is correct. By now, you've already written it, so it'll be a matter of going through and editing for silly grammar mistakes, possible spelling mistakes, stuff like that. But just keep at it. A few more minutes, and then we'll look at the model letters. Okay, 1 minute left. All right. Well done, everybody, for doing that. I think that's a really good experience of what it's like on test day. And that's how 40 minutes feels like. I realize the time is not finished, but remember we spent 3 minutes at the beginning planning our letter. 40 minutes is enough time to write a good letter. Okay. I wouldn't say it's plenty of time. It's enough time. And with a plan, it's still enough time. Okay, now that we've done that and you've had the experience of handwriting a letter, which is, as I said before, an unusual experience and one that you don't want to just do on test day. You want to do it in live classes like this. This is a very good thing to do. Okay, let's spend a little bit of time looking at some model letters now. You can do a bit of a comparison of your letter versus these ones. Let's first have a look at what I believe, or what we believe at E2 Language are the relevant case notes, which will be in red. These are the relevant ones. Less important in purple, irrelevant in yellow, and green would be repeated information, for which there is none in this one, which is a bit of a surprise. Usually there is repeated information. So let me give you a few minutes here. I just want you to think about whether your case note selection was the same as this one here. I think that time is going to be too long. I'm just going to give you like 1 or 2 minutes to compare case note selection. Pop into the chat if you have any disagreements, please, or agreements. That'd be fine too. Cool. All right. Sharania says it's the same. Well, that's good because I'm not a doctor and I imagine you are. Shahana says 98% the same. Mohammed says agree. Fahad said just included drinking habit. Okay. Okay. Social drinker. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Tasneem says no need to mention her father. Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure about that. So the father also has asthma. Interesting, right? I think it was a pretty straightforward letter in terms of case note selection. So let's just quickly go through this then. Let me just get out my drawing tool. So in the reading time, this is what I would be doing. I'd be going, okay, so Susan is a patient of mine, right? Social history. So graphic design is irrelevant. Youngest in family is irrelevant. Social drinker, perhaps less important, but definitely not relevant. Okay, let's think of relevance first. Next, we'll think about prioritization. Smoker, 7 years, 10 to 15 cigarettes a day. Okay, that's extremely relevant considering we're talking to a pulmonologist about respiratory problems, for example. Father also has asthma. Yeah, less important. Mother, hypertension. Younger brother, ADHD. Grandfather, type 2 diabetes. Irrelevant. Medical history, asthma since age 4. 2 previous asthma attacks resulted in hospitalization. Relevant. Also, we can see a bit of some allergies type of situations here. Allergic rhinitis, eczema. She also suffers from anxiety, which would be important, but less important, I would say. Fractured the tibia. Let me just move my thing here. Excuse me. Okay, let me get this back. Okay, so the current drugs are Ventolin and Symbicort, important or relevant, and Zyrtec would be less important. And this particular, when she visited the doctor on this date, these 3 things were irrelevant. Who cares about this? The pulmonologist doesn't care about this. But on this date, however, she was short of breath, nocturnal cough 7 nights per week, and her Ventolin use had increased. On this visit, there was some less important information, and then there was some relevant information, including the CXR and PEF. Okay. Some notes here: non-compliance with her inhaler. She forgets to use it. That's relevant and important. And also probably less important, or maybe important was relevant, was the discussion about quitting cigarettes. And the treatment plan was also relevant. So hopefully yours matched mine there. Cool. Okay. Let me go back. Let's have a look at a poor model answer. Just let me quit that. Okay. I don't know if you can see this. Hopefully you can read this. I'm going to just go through this with you, actually. This is what the OET examiners grade you on, okay? This is what they are. The OET examiners are looking at this while they're looking at your letter, and they're going, okay, task fulfillment. Did you complete the requirements of the task from high to low? Was your introduction, did your introduction contain the main issue, the reason for writing, and the request? Did you prioritize the most important information? Did you cover the treatment and discharge plan, including a clear request? Did you write an appropriate number of words, about 220 for the entire letter or about 180 to 200 for the body? Second, the examiners grade you on your understanding of case notes. Did you interpret the case notes correctly? Did you select only relevant case notes according to the task and the recipient? Number 3, the appropriateness of language. The examiners also grade you on how well you transformed the case notes into your own words. Okay, I want you to look at this in a minute. After I've gone through these, I want you to tell me why this is poor, for example. Then we'll look at a good one. 3B, did you use a range of sentence types to convey your ideas clearly? For example, simple, compound, passive, etc. Did you structure your overall letter logically? Did you organize the information within the paragraph logically? So overall structure and then structure within the paragraph. Did you use discourse markers appropriately? For example, however, as a result, therefore, for example, not too many, but not too few. Is it formal? Okay, have a look at this, for example, thanks. I don't know if that's formal. Did you use correct salutations and titles? So dear doctor, Miss Susan, etc. Did you use abbreviations appropriately? Then it moves on to grammar. I won't go through the grammar because it's just the typical stuff there. Let me just move this, excuse me, and let me get this back. And finally, letter presentation is you use correct letter format, including the address and date. You put spaces between your paragraphs and you use punctuation correctly. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to read this and just think about what this author has done poorly. Okay, what has the writer done poorly here? Okay, maybe 3 minutes is a little bit too much because I want to spend some time looking at the good one and applying the same checklist here to the good one. By the way, if you're an E2 language member, when you get your writing feedback from us, you submit a letter through the platform, we actually grade you according to this criteria here, what you're looking at. And this is the criteria that the OET examiners look at. So the feedback that we give you is the same It might differ very slightly from what you actually receive on test day, but it's based on the same criteria, okay, so, which is a good thing. Okay, let's go through it now. Let's go through it. Let me move this. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my Zoom today. Let me move this right down here. Okay, that's better. And let me get out my little spotlight. Here we go. Okay, first thing, you completed the requirements of the task. Well, in fact, the task was a little bit unclear with this one. It didn't really say you had to do much at all. We're just referring to a pulmonologist. So it would have come down to selection of case notes and would have come down to the management plan here, which this management plan is not very good at all. It's not very clear. Okay, the introduction contained the main issue, the reason for writing, and the request. Well, it says Susan from Dandenong East is a graphic designer who smokes 10 to 15 cigarettes a day and drinks socially. So this was a terrible introduction. It did not contain the main medical issue. It did not contain the reason for writing / the request. We can also see here that there was no prioritization of important information. Okay, for example, this was probably the most, where is it actually? Here, the cessation of smoking. I can't even see it, okay? So the problem is here that the reader wants to find out almost immediately what the main medical issue is. What is the most prioritized or important information? It's not clear here. It's not clear at all. Let's have a look at the treatment or discharge or management plan, including the clear requests. It seems to me that she needs comprehensive management plan to optimize her lung function. Okay, it's not too bad. The request isn't too bad. I'm not sure about word count here. Interpreting the case notes correctly, I won't comment on. In terms of relevant case notes, well, there's a whole heap of irrelevant case notes here, including this about being a graphic designer. That's irrelevant. The history of her family hypertension. The fact that she had a broken leg. I don't think the pulmonologist really cares too much about that. So there's a bunch of case notes that are irrelevant. In terms of transforming the case notes into her own words or your own words, there's a bunch of things, case notes here that have been taken directly from the case notes and have not been transformed. Okay, you can see all of these little parts here that are straight from the case notes themselves. Is there a range of sentence types? Yes, I think it's pretty good. The structure is not logical. It doesn't flow from most important to least important, finishing with a request. Within the paragraphs, it just seems all to be jammed in there. For example, this one here is a good example of a bad paragraph. Additionally, there is this, and this. That's not logical. Discourse markers, well, there's a few. There's unfortunately, but I don't know if we should be using unfortunately. We're trying to remain quite objective here. I guess it's okay, but there's a lack of good. This one's not too bad given the history. There are a few discourse markers, for example. Formality is a problem. Thanks. Smokes 10 to 15 a day. Susan, there's a bit of informality there as well. Salutations and titles are funny. Here's Susan. Here is Ms. Susan. So that's wrong. Okay, so it should be Ms. Forrest. What else we got? Abbreviations appropriately? No, this is an inappropriate use of an abbreviation, for example. This should have been expanded. I won't comment on the grammar because it will just take me too long, but the grammar looks pretty good. In terms of the letter presentation, sorry, just give me a second to move that. In terms of the letter presentation, somebody commented that this is all, this isn't spaced out properly. So let's contrast this now with the good model letter. Let's read the good model letter and think about the same thing and think about why this is structured properly, why the case notes are selected properly, and why it is well prioritized. Any comments on this good model letter? What do you think about it? Interesting. So Syed said it's very nice. It's organized like a nice story. I agree. Well structured, isn't it? Somebody's noticed that there's no mention of the cigarette smoking. Is that correct? Okay, so this would actually be penalized because it has missed a critical case note. Oh, where is it? Oh, sorry, she's a regular smoker. Okay, good. See, that's an interesting thing. I think that probably could be more prioritized. It could almost go in the introductory paragraph, her smoking. So if you did do that, I think that's probably a good idea because 10 to 15 cigarettes a day is quite significant. I think you would agree with that. So it probably could have been prioritized. Okay, there's a little issue here. Actually, there should have been a paragraph break here, but that was just my fault. I should have put a space here. Let's just read the management plan because the management plan is particularly good. Given these recent issues and her long history of asthma, I would appreciate it if you could carry out a comprehensive assessment of her respiratory state and compile an appropriate management plan, including an evaluation of the suitability of her current medications. I think that's fantastic. That's a great management plan or request written there right at the end. Anyway, the whole thing is good as far as I'm concerned. Perhaps the cigarette smoking could have been prioritized a little bit more, made a little bit more prominent. You can see that it's just kind of, it's a little bit buried in this paragraph here. Okay, cool. But hopefully that gives you a good idea of what it is that you need to do on test day, okay, in order to achieve a sort of B or even higher than a B. Yes. And as I said, those criteria there are the same criteria that the OET examiners actually use to mark your writing. So if you write to them, in fact, everything that I've shown you today is always, everything we do on E2 language is always towards the criteria. Okay, we never teach you anything that's outside of the criteria. Everything you do will get you a high score, and it's all based on that. And the good news is that it's all good advice, by the way. It's just something you should be doing in your clinical practice anyway. Cool. All right, I think that's about all. So let's just have a quick look at the structure here. So there was the patient condition purpose. There was the medical history, meds and important information in paragraph 3, the recent admissions, and then the detailed request. So this is just how this particular task, this is the structure that this particular task required. Okay, I was flexible, I read the task, I read the case notes, and this is the structure that I came up with according to that task and those case notes. I didn't have a pre-structure in mind. Everything I wrote was flexible and according to the task. Cool. I think that's all. By the way, I realize that some of you have your test tomorrow, and I wish you the best of luck. If you're taking the test in March and you haven't signed up to e2language.com, I recommend you do that. For those of you in the Zoom webinar, I'm speaking to you guys have already done that, so that's a good thing. Cool. Let's just go to a Q&A now. Let's go to a Q&A. I'll stick around and answer any questions. If you have any questions on reading or listening or speaking, I'm happy to answer those as well. I think an interesting comment here was from Syed was that good model letter was organized like a nice story. And I think that's how you should be thinking about the structure. It's a nice story. You're telling the story. Okay, very good. Okay, Great, my mouse has disappeared. How do I get that back? Hold on. Just bear with me. I'm having some odd computer issues today. Okay, what have we got? Mohammed, what's your query there? You might have to write it in again, Mohammed, because I've got a number of questions in here. Sorry. Joseph. Okay, so Joseph said that the discussion about quitting smoking was discussed, and this should have been critical and should have been put in there. Good, I agree. Okay, Mohammed's got a question about when you're writing a discharge letter, what date do you put in the letter? Okay, so when you write your letter, the first thing you can do right at the top of your letter or underneath the address, you put the date of the exam. So if you're taking the exam tomorrow, I don't know what the date is, my watch is wrong, which will be in Australia at least the 23rd. Right at the top of the letter or below the address, you write 23/02/2019. Okay, date of the exam. Okay, what other dates do you need to include in the letter? Well, if you're writing a discharge letter, you'll also include the date that the patient will be discharged. For example, you might say in the introductory paragraph, "Thank you for accepting this patient who will be discharged on the 1st of March 2019." Okay, that's it. So sometimes that gets confusing, but just keep that in mind. The other kind of date that you'll mention in your letter is if the patient has visited your medical clinic on several occasions or several dates, you might want to say something like, Samantha Smith visited first on the 2nd of February. 2 weeks later, she visited again whatever. So they may be mentioned in your letter as well, but don't think about that too much. Vangalita, how bad is it if we write over 200 words in the body? It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Better to write more than less. Probably means you've included some irrelevant case notes. That's not as bad as excluding relevant case notes. Okay, let me just say that again so you've got that right. If you're looking at a case note and you're thinking, should I include it or shouldn't I include it? Include it. Because it's worse to leave out an important case note. Do we write with pencils in the reading and listening part A? Yes, I believe you use a pencil throughout the whole exam. One of these old things. I don't know if you remember those from high school. You'll be using those. And writing your essay, or your letter, by the way, with a pencil is a strange experience. Muna, thank you, Mr. J. What you did really is the best teaching method ever. We need like this practice. All of us know the steps, but we lack the practice. Cool. Good one. Thank you, Muna. Yeah, I think it's good to really just, as painful as it is to write these letters, sometimes it's just a good idea. Syed, is there any rule about mentioning the name of the referral doctor or date first? No. Sometimes you may have to mention, actually, I won't comment on that, but no, there's no rule. There's no rule. Oh, Kemas, I'm sorry about your experience there. Well, you'll have to do it next month, hopefully. Cool. All right. I'm going to go because I'm actually really sick. I've got a terrible sore throat and I feel like I need to go to bed. So anyway, if you're taking the exam tomorrow, I wish you the best of luck. I really hope you pass. I hope you get the grades you want. If you don't, come back and keep studying and you'll get it. Okay? Cool. See you later, guys. Thanks very much for coming along. Appreciate it.